do introductions. Will we do that formally? Though normally what I do is record this in Teams, folks, and then we start the meeting proper. Stephen, you'll be familiar with that. Geraldine, you'll be familiar with that. So maybe do that and then move into a meeting proper, and we'll do introductions as part of that. Leslie, for yourself. Does that sound okay for everyone?
Yeah.
Okay, so give me my usual few wee seconds just to start the recording. Record and transcribe. Start recording. Okay, so that should be us again with the top left. Cross-check from previous experience, Stephen and Geraldine, that seems to work for us. And appears to be recording the meeting from the first disclaimer I'll give Leslie for your benefit is this records and transcribes the meeting. You'll see the transcript going into the kind of chat forum, and that captures that too. Our experience of that is it's quite unreliable, depending on how clear your voice is and accents, etc., as to what it picks up. So what we rely on for the purposes of the meeting is the audio element of the recording, because you can get some strange and wonderful transcriptions from what people have said to what's actually captured in the text. Okay, let's start with introductions, folks. I'm Colin MacDonald. I'm Head of Adult Services in South Glasgow, and my role in this meeting is being responsible for managing Stephen's sickness absence currently on behalf of Clyde Health and Social Care Partnership. We'll go to Geraldine next.
Hello, I'm Geraldine Kieranson. I'm the care manager supporting Colin and Stephen this afternoon. Very nice to meet you, Leslie. We've heard a lot about you and the support you're providing for Stephen.
And Stephen, come yourself. Thanks to you guys, obviously know each other. Leslie, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm Leslie Roberts. I was a former employee of GGC. I was a staff nurse. I was Unite the Union's general workplace rep, equality and diversity rep, and health and safety rep in Clyde Royal, and obviously for the board for the last two.
Okay, thank you, Leslie. In terms of meeting flow today, folks, I was going to. Sorry, Geraldine, you want to come in?
Yeah, just to confirm, Leslie's supporting Stephen today as a friend.
Yeah. Okay, thanks, Geraldine. In terms of meeting flow, I was going to do housekeeping as chair of the meeting, folks, just in terms of how I plan the meeting to kind of flow today. I was going to offer some initial responses to the email sent in the system earlier today with yourself, Stephen, to myself. I was then going to outline what the purpose of today's meeting is, and then come to yourself, Stephen, for your own thoughts on anything you want to raise today also, and then we'll look as usual to discuss any points that come up and to summarise and agree a way forward around that, okay?
Yep.
Okay, Leslie, just on Geraldine's point, it's important we're clear at the start of the meeting, I suppose, in terms of housekeeping, just that you're not hearing a staff side rep role today. You were previously in that role, but you're here just as a friend and support for Stephen today, just confirming that at the start of the meeting.
However, can I come in at that point and just say that at any point there is nothing in the policies or documents that states that I cannot speak to Stephen at any point throughout this meeting. So if I feel that I need to speak to him or offer some friendship, I will be doing so.
Yep, that's fine. And I wasn't precluding you from doing so. I was just making clear that it wasn't even the staff side role. Okay.
I'm aware of that.
Okay, thank you. Okay, in terms of today's meeting, we've obviously had several meetings now since summer 23, and we're looking to progress things in terms of the sickness absence. Obviously, that's been well documented that the sickness absence has been, from myself and Geraldine's point of view, we were asked to pick that up solely from a sickness absence point of view, and part of the contentious nature of this meeting previously a bit has been us trying to take that forward in isolation from the other issues that you've raised with various people over the last few years, Stephen. So it's just really important for me again to focus the kind of concentrate discussion today around that sickness absence, to define that we are in a position currently on the 17th of January. I think the last sick line was up yesterday, Stephen, in terms of in the 16th, so we can get clarity from yourselves around the way forward around that. In terms of your pay situation, I believe you went on to half pay on the 14th of this month, with a potential no pay situation from the 12th of February. previous meetings, we were keen to consider any opportunity to return to work and how we could support that and look at options around that in terms of anything that would have made that feel safe to yourself, Stephen, or feel supportive in terms of you being able to return. And from your own point of view, I think what we've heard loud and clear is extremely difficult and impossible for you to extrapolate that from the other issues you see you have with the board and with various members of the management teams you've dealt with. In terms of today's meeting, and I suppose covering the email you sent earlier, Stephen, in terms of the health, which I suppose is quite a crucial element because it's relevant to the sickness absence function that myself and Geraldine are dealing with, and also relevant from your own point of view into your historical issues over the last few years and how you feel they're intrinsically linked to any way forward with working with us to look at returning to work. In terms of the issues you lay out, Stephen, and obviously you're concerned that we questioning the health recommendations from Andy Letham. My reasons for doing so, and it's not alone, you're not a case in isolation where I've done that, is that I felt the questions I put and the support I needed around managing the sickness absence was not answered in Andy's response. Therefore, I'd asked him to consider it again in terms of fitness to work, which is the area I was asked to look at, and also just giving me clarity around anything we could do to progress things, because it's really difficult from my own point of view without the joint working we've asked for to move this case forward with yourself without getting clarity on the ability to be at work through your sickness health aspects, and I've been able to look at that, as I say, cleanly in terms of supports we could put in place to facilitate that. In terms of not taking his considerations was another thing you'd mentioned in some of the points, and again, what Andy had reported back was stuff you'd raised with me that had been discussed, investigated and clarified in other processes that were not part of the process that I was dealing with. So whilst again I know you will think that they're intrinsically linked and I should be doing that too, but it's not normal process that I've set in previous meetings for sickness absence management teams to then reinstigate or to reinvestigate issues that have already been looked at by other people within the organisation. The task in hand was to look at the ability to return you to work and what supports we could put in place to facilitate that. So that's a very brief response to the points raised, and I'm happy to follow that up in writing if you need to clarify anything that you feel is outstanding, Stephen, either in writing or in response to my initial context for the meeting today. And as I say, the key point being the ask that was made initially of myself and Geraldine and how we've taken that forward.
Can I offer a response to that?
Yes, come in.
Right,
come
okay.
In point,
So I'm taking on board what you're saying, Colin. However, when you take into consideration the whole situation in terms of your repeated refusal to discuss the last occupational health report content and the previous occupational health report content, both which concisively conclude abuse of policy and victimisation that supports my allegations of criminality, corruption and long-term victimisation, it paints a very obvious picture of a pattern of behaviour where you are cherry-picking certain aspects in order to obstruct discussions that are going to expose corruption and criminality in the organisation. Now, if you would have just said to me, the fact that you had said to me previously that you simply needed it, I had confronted you regarding this and I'd already made the allegation in preempting what you were going to do, and you had refused and says, no, Stephen, I'm just needing simple clarity. You then contradicted that by writing to Andy Letham and telling you are disappointed with his report, not what you expect for occupational health, and then proceeded to direct him on what to do. Now, see, if that was the case, there is no point in having independent occupational health reports. You may as well write it yourself, because that is not what occupational health is designed for. Now, when you take that into consideration with the other points that you consistently refused to discuss, the first occupational health report that exposed corruption and criminality, not exposed corruption and criminality, but supported that there was something wrong. The second one that blatantly supported that was abuse of policy and victimisation. Now, you refused carte blanche to discuss any of those, and then proceeded to lie and say that you just needed clarity, and then directly wrote to Andy Letham and told him to change them. That is not on. That is not what occupational health is for. And it would have been fine if you'd have just said, I disagree with some points, but you refuse to discuss either. And when you take into consideration that there's such severe content within those occupational health reports that substantiate and support allegations of criminality, the ongoing allegations that I've made related to the criminality, the cover-up of death, the cover-up of a contaminated water supply, victimisation and abuse, and you have carte blanche, as I say, refused to do that. So your answers here today are not appropriate given the severity of the questions that I've asked you. And when you're kind of cherry picking a wee bit in what you're saying in order to deflect the serious nature of the concerns that have been raised. So I take on board what you're saying. I appreciate why you're doing it, and I'm registering for the record my absolute disapproval of your response.
No, that's absolutely fine. And again, to re-clarify, given your feedback, Stephen, the main points I made to Andy and what I asked for were, in terms of managing the sickness, absence and potential return to work, the response was unhelpful and didn't allow me to take that forward in the fashion I wanted to do that. What I asked them to do was to consider some particular points about your fitness to return to work, and also offer the case conference to discuss these issues, should that be helpful to
So would you not consider the fact that Andy Leatham has clearly documented that there is organisational abuse of policy and victimisation against me, that therefore the abuse and the organisational victimisation has a direct consequence to my safety to return to work? Do you not feel that is appropriate?
So again, that feeds into another investigative process.
No, it doesn't. It feeds into my sickness absence management, because you're here to evaluate my return to work. He's clearly telling you that I'm getting abused and victimised. That is directly linked to this conversation. How can I possibly return to work if you're not willing to address victimisation and abuse that has been succinctly and very concisively supported by occupational health on 2 occasions?
And I was, Geraldine, I'll bring you in a minute, but I was very clear in what part of what I wanted to discuss further with Andy, Stephen, was the points he's making are valid to the conversation you and him had, but some of them have been dealt with in separate processes. And the key
No, they've not. No, they've not. They've not been dealt with in separate. They've not been dealt with in separate processes. That's a lie.
Or what we could do to facilitate and support your return to work. That was key.
They have not. What processes are you suggesting that they've been dealt with in? What processes are you suggesting? You're sitting there saying you know about processes that have dealt with these claims. So what processes are you talking about?
Well, I'm assuming you're
Don't assume, Colin. You're stating that your processes have already dealt with them, so you're stating that you've got knowledge of it. I'm asking you what processes you're referring to.
You've claimed you've been in meetings with Jane Grant about organisational corruption.
That is not linked to his clarification that there's organisational abuse related directly, specifically to my sickness absence management. He's openly said I've been outside a policy for 2 years. So what investigations are you talking about?
Let me respond, Stephen. Let me respond, then we'll let Geraldine come in. We need to manage the meeting in terms of giving professional courtesy too. So your sickness absence, we as courtesy at either the first or second meeting, Geraldine, you might correct me in terms of when we done it, but you raised the question about us not being or appearing willing or not you feeling we weren't willing to discuss the previous stuff around sickness absence. So as a courtesy at that point, I asked Geraldine and she kindly went and spoke with HR colleagues about providing a timeline around that. We then acknowledged and apologised and agreed that had been mishandled previously in terms of your
for 2 years, Colin. Left me for 2 years. Mishandled. No, that's not mishandled, that's abused. Multiple people were involved in that practice, not just one. You can't have somebody off of work for 3 years actually, without any contact, without any support, no sickness absence. Everybody else gets a phone call every week. How are you? How's your symptoms? What are your offers? Are anything can date support you back to work? Years I was off for, no contact. So don't say that was mishandled. That was clearly abused because there was multiple people involved in that. And you as a sickness absence manager, through your role and identification of that, as supported by Andy Leatham, should be triggering an investigation into who was involved in that, why did they do that, what was their motive, and how can we possibly protect him from them. You've not done any of that.
Again, I wouldn't see that as normal process for me.
That is absolutely the process.
We looked back, we acknowledged it hadn't been handled correctly, and we committed to handling it correctly, and that's the policy going forward.
Would you say that's not right? Okay.
Just let Geraldine come in for a wee minute, Stephen, just in terms of that. Geraldine's hands went up for a bit in case we move on from the point.
Yeah, thanks. I'm just going to take you back to the occupational health, the review is happening on a regular basis. And I know that Occupational Health have been trying to get a hold of you, Stephen, via telephone call and emails. And I don't
What
know
they try to get a hold of me for
something-
now, Geraldine? I've already just gave a report that succinctly gave a complete total. No, wait a minute, because they've already gave you an overview. They've already gave you a result. Yous were unhappy of it because it exposed corruption and criminality in the organisation. So why then he's asking for another one? You don't need another one.
I'm sorry, Stephen, but as part of the process, there is a normal process of review by Occupational Health. And that, in addition to that, Colin had asked for you to be reviewed in line with our...
So why did you refuse to discuss the first two?
What we're saying is...
No, I'm asking you a direct question. Why did you refuse to discuss the first two?
In respect to the Occupational Health report that we actually received, Colin received on your behalf, you were reviewed, and we had questions against that. That's normal practice in terms of...
Why did you refuse to discuss them?
Normal practice to review the situation.
Why did you refuse to discuss them?
What I'm actually saying to you just now is Occupational Health have been trying to be in contact with you in order to review the situation.
That's not what I'm asking you. Why did you refuse to discuss them in the last two meetings? Do you think it's normal practice for two occupational independent health reports that collaborate victimisation and abuse, and for the people that are responsible for the sickness absence management to refuse to discuss them repeatedly when the employee is repeatedly demanding that they are discussed because it supports these claims? Do you think that's normal practice? Do you think that's ethical?
What Geraldine's saying, right, and I'm speaking personally here, Stephen, from my own point of view in terms of managing the situation. So it's not, what we've done from the point of picking up this case is managed it as per policy. The engagement with Occupational Health and the stuff I received from Andy Latham, it's not unusual for me to go back with a request of saying, I need some specific questions answered. Can we discuss this? And it's not...
Well, you told them to change them, Colin.
For making it unindependent. It's about getting clarity from operationally managing the worker involved and the staff member involved, and how we can support, assist and practically do stuff aligned with an Occ Health view around matters, which sometimes the two don't automatically assist each other. So the conversation and the questioning and the back and forth is quite often an important part of getting a practical solution over the line, would be my point of view. And as I say, it's certainly not a unique situation to your case that would be done. In terms of the previous reports, again, the first Occupational Health report that we've acknowledged post that was mishandled for a period of time would not be our locus to pick up. We're looking at the current situation. The stuff Andy has raised, the stuff that you've raised, that you've taken forward with senior members in the board, that's what I'm referencing, and I'm aware of that through your communications. And it's not for me and Geraldine to investigate that part. Our part is to support you in the sickness absence point and to manage the sickness absence points.
Okay, right, Colin. In the last meeting, I asked you a direct question. Is it your role to, when an employee is off through employee work-related symptoms as a result of whatever, when he's off with occupational-related symptoms, I asked you directly, is it your role to discover the origin of those symptoms, why they are there, and to put in place a plan of action in order to protect you from why that happens in the first place? You says no, as in the recording. You say that's not your responsibility. That is unfactual. You, as a sickness absence review manager, are supposed to review why I'm off, establish my symptoms, evaluate if they're work related, do an investigation into what happened, why did you get those work related symptoms, and also put things in place to protect me from them. You have refused categorically and repeatedly to open any discussions related to my symptoms, the origin of my symptoms. You've said it's not your job to find out why I've got my symptoms that are work related. You've said it's not your job to evaluate my health and safety, which is Leslie has supported, sending you direct communication saying there's severe risk to my personal health and safety as registered by to Police Scotland by Leslie. You've refused to discuss that. You've refused to discuss pretty much anything. You've refused to discuss the two occupational health reports because they expose corruption and criminality, and you have cherry-picked, deflected, intentionally carried out stonewall tactics repeatedly, refusing to engage with what your responsibilities as a sickness absence review manager is by establishing my symptoms, why I'm off, is it work related, how did you get them, and how do we stop you from getting them to try and get you back to work. You've done none of that. Not one bit of that have you done. All you've done is sat there and say, where do you want to go to work?
Yeah, so and what I said alongside that, Stephen, was how can we get you back to work in a place you would...
We can't if you're not going to have those discussions.
Pardon?
We can't get... How can you get me back to work when you're not willing to discuss the origin of my symptoms, why I'm off, victimisation and bullying, my health and safety? How can you possibly have the discussion to support me back to work when you're refusing to have repeatedly, as documented by the recorded evidence, that you've repeatedly refused to discuss? How can we possibly consider that? Colin, what you're saying is absolutely ridiculous, repeatedly.
Stephen, see, picking up a case, right? So we were asked to pick up a case several years down the line, as you say, right? So you do that in good faith, right? You engage with the staff member in good faith. You pick it up in good faith. At no point with this email locus was to go back and reinvestigate every single aspect of issue that you've had around there. That was not an ask. That's an unrealistic ask, both from yourself and it was an unrealistic ask from the organisation for me to do that. Right? They asked me to pick up the sickness absence management. Right? From that point, I was asked to do it. It was not. I
totally understand what you're saying. I totally understand what you're saying, Colin. But that's not what I'm asking. You refuse to discuss the origin of my symptoms and why I'm off work. You refuse to discuss health and safety matters, and you refuse to discuss 2 occupational health reports that support and reinforce my allegations of victimisation and abuse. You've personally viewed 2 reports now. 2. One that clearly states that there's been organisational abuse of policy for multiple years, and you're refusing to acknowledge or discuss those, and then ask me how I just want to go back to work. Your behaviour is absolutely appalling, both of you, with all due respect. You're not behaving in accordance to what your responsibilities are as sickness absence review, and definitely not an HR person who should know far better than to refuse to answer any of these questions in a sickness absence review. And for the record, all of these conversations that we are having are going to probably be evaluated at some point in relation to this whole escapade. What you are doing is atrocious.
That's fine in terms of the review and in terms of your view, but I hear you saying regular, and I hope you've got a sense of that through our interactions, that you understand our position. And from that, and from previous discussions where you had your staff cited rep there, we were in consensus that we were there to deal with the sickness absence potential return to work in a bubble. We could have taken that forward as
how'd you do that if you're not discussing my symptoms? What are you talking about, Colin? You're not wanting to talk about my symptoms, health and safety, or the reasons why I'm off?
I was wanting to get to a point where you would define for us how we could get you back to work if you were fit to return to work.
Discuss my symptoms, my health and safety. Do what I've just said.
Can I come in here, please, if you don't mind? Can I come in here? I'm speaking as a friend.
Oh, sorry, Leslie, can I just stop you there? If you want to kind of take it offline and speak to Stephen yourself, that would be absolutely fine. If you want to be a break, that's absolutely fine.
Can I just state for the record, by the way, in relation to that, and given in the fact that the organisation knows that Leslie's been a rep for multiple years, she's my previous rep, she's got full knowledge of the case, and that you would expect the organisation to take a bit of consideration for that and allow her to speak in the circumstances, knowing full well she's got accreditation, experience, and been my rep for a long time, and so refusing to let her talk just further reinforces the organisation's... No, that's something you definitely don't do, Colin. That's something you definitely don't do, I can assure you.
Certainly, you don't do. I would totally agree with that. For the record, all I'm going to say is...
Leslie, do you want to take it offline?
I would like to say this online for the evidence.
I'm sorry, Leslie, can I just stop you there? You don't have any input into this particular meeting. As I said, we're really happy that you support Stephen, and if you want to take that offline, we're happy to wait on you and having that discussion with him. But, you know, this is the process, and Stephen has been allowed staff side representation and has chosen today not to be represented by staff side.
For a personal reason, and Leslie has been my rep for a longer time than Danny was.
Are we clear though, folks, just for this meeting that Leslie, that's the position? Are you guys wanting 5 minutes and then to reconvene?
To be honest, this whole meeting's a mockery, so it doesn't really make any difference.
I would agree with Stephen completely on that, but you are out of process, you are out of protocol, and I'd like that put online. you are not acting within your own processes or
I'm
protocols.
sorry, Leslie, I'm going to stop you right there again. We're taking on board what Stephen is saying, and he's already said what you're trying to say here. We totally acknowledge.
They hand signals, Leslie, hand signals. Maybe that'll be allowed.
Okay, in terms of where we're at, then, I mean, it doesn't sound like we're able to move forward in terms of progress around the clarity of return to work.
Because you are refusing to go along with what you're supposed to do. That's why we're not able to move forward.
We're keen to have a further enhanced conversation with Oak Health that we'd ask you to engage.
I bet you're right.
Is what we want to do. In terms of getting clarity, as I've said many times, around a few key points. Out with that, though, we plan to move forward with the process, which would be moving this meeting to a final review meeting, and that would be hosted back by Clyde Health and Social Care Partnership. So that would be our plan following the meeting today, to try and expedite that as much as possible, particularly in light of the pay situation, which I outlined earlier, and as I think I've highlighted.
And also Andy Leatham has objected to, which I'm refusing to acknowledge again. He's clearly stated I shouldn't be going on to half pay or no pay when I've been outside a policy for 2 years and been abused by process, which are again you're cherry picking not to state.
No, not at all.
Why you not mentioned it then?
Because I need to clarify.
Quite a big thing.
Stephen, that I need you to engage with.
You don't need clarity. He's already told you. He's already said it in his report. Why are you not discussing that right now? Because you don't want to discuss it because you know it exposes corruption. That's why you're not wanting to discuss it. We all know what's going on here, Colin.
It doesn't expose corruption. So,
it doesn't? Alright, okay.
In terms of moving forward, that would be where we would be going to get another meeting as soon as possible around the final review stage of your ability to return to work, Stephen. As I say, the key change around that element would be back to Clyde management to pick that up in terms of managing that process at that point. Obviously, there would be input from myself. It would be important, as Geraldine said already today, that if you would consider re-engaging with Oak Health so we can define further the questions we've got.
I'll speak to my union about that.
Sorry, I've lost everybody completely.
I'll speak to my union about that.
Sorry, I've lost everyone completely.
Okay, you're not allowed to speak anyway, so what's...
We lose both of you guys at that point, Geraldine and Leslie. Just checking who can hear. Can everyone?
I can hear you. I can hear you.
Yeah, I can hear you now. Sorry, it went off just a little
Leslie,
bit.
Leslie, you back online? I'll give Leslie a wee minute. Leslie, if you confirm if you can hear me.
I can't hear anything. I lost you about 5 minutes ago.
Can you hear it? Can you hear me now? We can hear you now.
I'm losing you completely. It's as if your voice is just saying "and" for about 10 seconds there.
Right. It might be a signal issue, Leslie. That Stephen will receive a copy of this audio anyway for anything you've missed. Okay. So it'd be up to Stephen to share that with you, and you can discuss in the back of that.
So,
in terms of the audio.
See, in relation to how we take this, well, what I'm going to say is, and I want it just stated for the record for the purpose of this meeting. So, in relation to what my concerns have been, as I've already stated, is I've repeatedly refused to discuss the origin of my work-related symptoms. I've repeatedly refused to discuss ongoing bullying and targeted victimisation. You've repeatedly refused to discuss the original and most recent occupational health reports that expose abuse and policy supporting targeted organisational abuse and victimisation. You've refused to discuss the severe health and safety concerns that have been reiterated by the night union rep Leslie Roberts that's sent you correspondence related to her involvement with Police Scotland. You've consistently employed stonewall tactics, both of you, in multiple occasions in order to deflect conversations away from topics that are going to expose corruption and criminality in the organisation. You lied when you said that you were not disappointed with the second occupational health report by Andy Leatham. You then proceeded to contact him and tell him that you were disappointed with not only his report, but he said it wasn't to be expected occupational health report, and a report that is openly exposing my support for my allegations of targeted victimisation and discriminatory behaviour by him saying that I've been abused by policy for multiple years. You've made deliberate effort to change the outcome of occupational health report that is supposed to be independent, citing your disappointment to Andy Leithman's report, as I say, not be what you expect. And that's, I mean, I could go on and go on and go on all the time. Now, given the fact that you have both viewed that report and that you have now viewed independent supporting evidence by a professional that supports those organised national abuse and corruption in relation to the allegations that I've made, which are linked to criminality, the cover-up of contaminated water, the cover-up of death, multiple evidences of corruption. Are you, Colin MacDonald, licensed registered nurse that's governed by the NMC, going to contact the police in line with your responsibilities as a registered nurse?
I'll let you go in a minute, Geraldine, but no would be
Okay, that's fine. That's all you need to say. Just for the record, I want that documented that you've said
I think
no.
I've been clear in terms
No,
of
you have. No, that's fine. I just want to give you the opportunity to say it.
And my role has never been to reinvestigate any of these allegations that I know.
You've personally viewed the occupational health report that exposes that. You've seen that your employer has been involved in abusive, corrupt behaviour, linked to the allegations that I've made. Therefore, it's my opinion that as your role as a nurse and the obligations you've got, you're morally, legally, and professionally obliged to contact the police when you've got concerns that you've observed that there's links to the allegations of cover-up of contaminated water and the cover-up of death of Mr. Edward McCluskey, and ongoing abuse and victimisation of me. So you are now personally, as Colin MacDonald, refusing to do that.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you now, Geraldine, as the HR representative. What are you going to do, Geraldine? Are you refusing to contact the police, having viewed that report?
Geraldine, you want to come in?
Yes, I do, but I just want to take us back to concluding the meeting, Colin, in terms of where we are and where we're going from here in terms of the recommendation for the stage 3 hearing to be held to consider your employment status, given that there's no progress been made since we met since last summer, Stephen. And
because you have not followed policy.
Really disappointed and so sorry that we've not been able to move forward with yourself to get a satisfactory return to work for yourself. And I know your feelings, and these particular meetings seem to be causing you, some distress as well in terms of where we're going. And
your behaviour's causing me distress.
And where you're feeling, and in terms of, we do wish you well, but in terms of process, what we will be doing is moving forward to stage 3, where your employment will be considered at that particular hearing, and you will have that opportunity again to raise your concerns, of which Colin and myself have been happy to listen to, but it has been out with our control in order to be able to.
It's been plenty within your control. You've chosen to use obstructive tactics, stonewall tactics, and cherry pick what you're talking about. Geraldine, I'll ask you again. Are you going to phone the police for the record?
Stephen, I have no information.
Yes, you have. You've viewed the report, Geraldine.
There is no. I'm going to answer. I have no evidence to be phoning the police about anything.
Right, that's fine.
In respect,
we know what you've seen. We know what you've heard.
I'm pleased that I've been able to meet with yourself, and I've tried to help you as best as possibly can. Colin has actually, as part of that place, has actually tried to give you reassurances and assurances of, trying to secure a return to work for yourself. And we are really disappointed and sorry that we're not being able to do that for yourself at this particular time. But perhaps, through the stage 3 process, that might occur.
Is that right? Okay. So just not Leslie, you're not allowed to speak. There's no point. I'm not going to let you speak. Just to let you know.
I'm going to say anyway for the recording. Unite the Union has now put it in writing that this organisation should be phoning the police. If you don't do it, as his former rep, I'm going to do it.
That's fine, Leslie, and as Stephen's guided you, you take that offline, Stephen, and it's up to you guys to do anything you wish to do with.
Okay, so I'm notifying you now at this point that we're already in discussions with the homicide detectives that are looking to see about how to take this case forward. And for the past how many meetings that I've had, I've been video recording every meeting to prove evidence of the conduct of both of you to support the corruption and the actions of Greater Glasgow and Clyde. Now, in terms of in anticipation of your response to say, oh, Stephen, you maybe shouldn't have been recording this, you originally agreed to audio record this meeting. That was the original agreement as evidenced in the emails, right? Now, what he's then proceeded to do was not audio record it. He's used that for a transcribe from Microsoft Teams because you knew it would misconstrue what was said in the transcripts. That was not the original agreement. Now, in the original agreement, it was to be audio recorded. Now, we can all agree that I'm entitled to get the verbatim recording of that audio recording. So everything that's discussed in that meeting would be entitled to be in my possession anyway. So there should be no problem with NHS Greater Glasgow and Clyde if there's been no malpractice in that conduct. Plus the fact that you've offered me a platform that uses the option to record, which is sitting here just now telling me, do you want to record? You're already recording, and I've had a legal review of that and been told that if you're recording and it's a two-way street and I have consistent concerns of corruption, criminality and information that could be related to a public disclosure, then I do have a right to video record that for evidence for a criminal investigation or a public disclosure. So I'm notifying you both of that now.
Public disclosure section 4.
I think every meeting we've had has been successfully audio recorded anyway.
That's fine then. I'm just forewarning you that this is most likely, all of these meetings are most likely going to be heavily reviewed, scrutinised and potentially released at some point.
That's absolutely fine, Geraldine.
Yeah, I think we're comfortable with that, Stephen. We agreed at your request for these meetings to be recorded and audio recorded, and evidence in terms of your staff side representative that you had apart from today's meeting. Okay, right, that's great. And much though, I'm just going to say this in because I know I'm not probably don't know if I'm going to speak to these again. Much though it pains me to say it's been a pleasure to me. I know the two of you are bad people and you're under a lot of pressure by NHS Greater Glasgow and Clyde to do what you're most likely doing, and I know that I've been very confrontational regarding your conduct and exposing what I believe is I've got to expose it. I've got no other option because I'm sitting here myself fighting this battle myself. People have died in Ravenscraig. Elizabeth Eggert is dead in Ravenscraig. Mr McCluskey's death was covered up. I'm not going to sit here and consistently allow this to happen. I know you two are in a very difficult situation. I know you are probably under pressure to conduct yourselves in the manner in which you have conducted yourself, but I still cannot sit here and allow this to continue. And I'm just saying, it's been interesting to have this.
We appreciate that it's not personal. I appreciate you've got.
I want you to know that. I really do want you to know that, but it isn't personal. But I know that your actions are on the right.
To be clear, and just to finish from my own point of view as kind of chairing the meeting, Geraldine's covered it. We were keen to help. We wanted to break what we thought was a difficult time we'd had locally, and maybe your circumstances not been managed rightly, and had to take it forward in a different fashion to succeed in that. Now, we've not been able to do that at this point, but that was a disappointment to us. We wanted to achieve that at this, and we're not under duress to do this. We're both experienced people, and we understand the upset that you've got around the issues you're raising as well. So there's certainly no problem there from our end also. Okay.
So do you have no problem with me releasing these videos for the reasons I've just documented?
We had recorded, Stephen, and in terms of releasing them, depending on whether we would give our consent for you releasing them too, because these were for your purposes. You asked for these to be recorded, which we have been able to do for yourself, and please
under the terms
of releasing them, these are round about your personal situation and your personal situation at this particular time, and therefore we would need to understand where you were releasing these from before we could agree that them being released, because these are for your purposes at this particular time.
Well, as I've just stated, it would be for the reasons for public disclosure in terms of evidencing the corrupt conduct at Greater Glasgow and Clyde in relation to the victimisation and the continuation of the cover-up of the contaminated water and the cover-up of the death of Mr Edward McCluskey. Now, within as I say, I've already had legal advice on it anyway, given the fact that there's been that I have got severe concerns and full belief of the corrupt behaviour related to that, and that there's, under the Public Disclosures Act terms, I don't know, it's about 5 terms, A, B, C, D, I can't even remember the number, I'm allowed to release it. I'm allowed to use it as evidence in order to expose that and support my claims, because it is directly related to severe health and safety matters, corruption and criminality in a public organisation. So it is what it is. I'm just kind of giving you the heads up with that, and most likely it'll be forwarded to the police as well.
Yeah, that's absolutely fine, Stephen. And what I would say is you'll have another opportunity in terms of the stage 3 process as part of this where employment will be considered at that time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Right, thank you. That is.
Okay, thanks everyone.
All right.
I'll follow up as usual and write to Stephen with an account of today's meeting. Okay, and the audio will be available.
Okay, thank you. Bye bye, guys.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.